So we're moving forward right now. Yesterday, like I mentioned earlier on, gentlemen, there was it took the media by storm. Though I'm suspicious, because this is what happened. Let me give a backdrop. When the colonial powers were commissioned by the United Nations to decolonize Africa, France strategized their approach and still recolonized Africa. France actually saw that they were losing and they had to do it. And they went ahead and signing a document called Accord de Coopération. I don't want to call it in English. I don't want to translate it. I just want it to be represented the way it is. And an entente, an understanding of that document has one of the clauses that has to do with mutual military support. So yesterday, as the media is saying, and as also attested by the president of Chad, late Idris Deby's son, is also known as Deby. The Republic of Chad has officially divorced France, not entirely, but military cooperation. They are called a cooperation entails more than a military cooperation. I feel this is an anticipatory strategy of France to stay within the folk somehow. I personally, my opinion is subjective. I don't believe that what happened in Gabon was a coup. But this begs the question, man speaks. He says, so that they can explore new relationship, they can independently think their future when it comes to partnership militarily. And I'm like, okay, Russia has been doing ties and relations with Africa. Is Russia actively involved? But if not, what will give the balls to Chad to do that when we know how weak Chad is after fighting several wars and is having a troubling economy? The lawyers, you are all politicians. In fact, Barrister Mbesia particularly is a seasoned diplomat, so he should be able to tell us this. I don't know if Dr. Patience will have something to contribute. But let's move into
Be
that
surprised.
divorce. Let's move into that divorce. I'll give you the floor to begin, Dr. Patience. What you heard the news, I'm sure. What do you think and what do you have to say?
Yes, you're right. I'm not a politician, but I do listen to the news and learn a thing here or there. Um, my understanding is that when the African nations were commissioned for decolonization, and I think Chad had its first experience of autonomy in 1958. And I think the particular date was November 28th, 1958, or the 2 years later on in 1960, they did get their independence. France, strategically, with all these African colonies, created this cooperation agreement in order to really have authority to continue being the masters of the same countries that were supposed to be independent. And they were smart, as a matter of fact. If I think about it, that was a smart move because they never really left. All these almost 17 countries that were colonies of France uh, were still colonies, in this case, legal colonies. And this document that came out, issued on the 28th of November, the press release where Chad is informing the international community that they are severing this cooperation agreement with France, is a wake up call. I think they've seen what is happening in Mali, in Burkina Faso, in Niger, where African leaders are waking up. And but the question is, if Russia was not there, would they have done what they did? Are they able to stand on their own without the help of some powers in the West or powers in the East? That is really the question we should be asking. And I'm hoping that there will be a time where Southern Cameroon and Bazonia, when we have our own statehood, can stand on our own 2 feet and not really have powers that will come in and with time may begin to exploit. So I really hope that, since I don't really have much to say, that Russia coming in as a partner will not in the long run be something that they will regret. That's all I have to say. But it is a good thing to let France go.
Are they really letting France go, or is it a strategy by France? I wrote it on my Facebook page. Maybe France is that eye. Let us think like maybe it's a modification, another method. That I'm still not sure that France Chad would have the balls to do that. But Safu, please.
Yes, buddy. I read the communique from the Chad presidency, and I also read the communique from the Minister of Defense of France, and I'm going to tie the two together. You see, I would argue that Chad is in a catch-22, confused, because the Russians have called on all African countries to get away from the French colonialism and maintain their autonomy and develop themselves. And Chad, when the Sahel countries decided to send away the French military, the Chadians received a lot of the military hardware that left the Sahel. The French took it down to Chad. But you must know the position of the present president of Chad. One, Chad has never been a monarchy, but the French have made Chad a monarchy by bringing Idriss Déby's son to be president. Number two, the last elections in Chad, the opposition leader actually won with 59% as to 14% for Idriss Déby's son. But the French, with the cooperation of the French, they seized the election from the opposition leader. And Chad's and Idriss Déby's son is still the president. So he has the support of France. France has installed its military presence in Chad very heavily. And you must also know that the Chadians have rebels. So this man has had this Idriss Déby's son has tested what is happening in the Sahel. Maybe the Russians have contacted him, and in order for him to play in between, just like Paul Biya is playing, what did he do? He said he's severing the military cooperation. Like you rightly said, Paddy, accord the cooperation is not only the military cooperation. And there is no way that he can annoy the French by seizing the military cooperation, because the amount of hardware that the French have in Chad is tremendous. And if the French withdraw from Chad, the rebels will take over Idriss Déby. He doesn't want that. And I want to see a document that what he's saying, he has passed it through his parliament, and they've approved that the French should leave. Until the French leave, I'm skeptical, because the Chadians are dependent on the French to survive. Up to now that we speak, the rebels are on the door. And the only thing preventing the rebels is the French military presence.
Yeah.
So everything that Idris Deby is doing, let me read to you, let me read to you what the French
Before you
what
read,
the French foreign minister, what the French defense minister said.
let me read. Let me say something before you read. You're talking about
Yes.
parliament. Yeah, like Yaoundé, like Jamina, there is no parliament. This guy,
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just saying that barely issue a communique of withdrawing military cooperation does not carry it, because he himself will be in danger if he does that. This is
yeah,
what this is what the French defense minister says. No more playing with words. Russia is France's greatest threat in Europe. Russia has attacked our interests in Africa
yeah,
by diverting our long-standing African partners. It has torn our market and our resource contracts from our African partners. It can be left. It can be felt at home. Russia has built an anti-French sentiment in Africa with a hate speech against France among Africans. This cannot continue without an answer if this is the future of France. French Minister of Defense. What is he saying? That the French are ready now to they will not accept the Russians interfering in their partnership with Africans anymore, because that is their survivor. This one, if you tie it with what the Idris Deby has written, it doesn't make sense to me, because the military presence of France in Chad is more than even the one in Gabon. What I'm saying now is also applies to Gabon. Gabon cannot ask the French to leave, because Gabon is heavily militarized by the French. So what are we talking about? These two African countries are in a catch-22 to follow the Sahel. They are in the same position like Paul Biya and La République. Paul Biya is so entangled in France in such a way that they cannot walk away from accord de coopération, whether the
entirely.
military wing or entirely, or whether the military or otherwise. Even though they have attempted and signed a military cooperation with the Russians, they have not left France. So they are all
Yeah.
confused African states. Chad is just joking, because if the French pull out of Chad, they will support the rebels and they will take over Idris Deby, and France will still be in Chad. That
I
is my
think
take.
I think you're. That's why I needed you to. Yeah, I know that Barrister Mbesia will be enlightening us also on some technicalities. I think I kind of agree with a lot of things that you have said. Your analogy is logical because you have documents, you have experiences, you have a clear understanding of how France operates for you to have made the conclusions you're making, and your argument has some substance. And this is where I'm bringing it to you, Barrister Mbesia. If there's anyone here that has a deep understanding, a very deep understanding, that person should be you. You're looking at the situation. What do you have to say?
May I say something? May I say something before Barista comes in?
Please just do it.
Because
Barrister Mesa is a gentleman. He will allow you to do that.
yes. So I want to say this because I think I somehow disagree with Barrister. So I think that before Chad comes out with such a document, they've done some background work. And the last paragraph that is in this their release press release says that The government of the Republic of Chad expresses its gratitude to the French Republic for the cooperation it has. The framework of this agreement remains open to constructive dialogue to explore new forms of partnership. I think, I may be naive, I think that before they come out with something like this, they've had some very solid work, solid discussion, solid dialogue with new partners like Russia, and they have a fallback. They will not throw themselves in the middle of the ocean when they don't have somebody there to defend them. That's what I think.
That
Thank you.
statement you have just made is
Hold on,
a moment.
hold
For a
on.
moment, please. But for a moment, a moment. That statement you have just made is what brings my own suspicion. I feel like it is an arrangé with France. I don't really feel that. I just feel there's something in between that no parties are telling us. But react, please, briefly.
Let me tell you, if you read what I just read from the defense minister of France,
Mhm.
there is no such agreement. The French are seated in charge. Their military hardware, the one that they brought from Burkina Faso, from Mali, and from which is and Niger, most of it is in Chad, and they have a very heavy military presence in Chad.
Okay,
And they have
that's what.
and Chad has a well financed and well equipped, a well armed rebels group.
Okay, that is well understood. By Stambesia, I'd like you to make a contribution now.
Well, maybe my contribution will be a little bit different, but I would like people to listen to us. You see, sometimes we jump into conclusions too fast, and this is good to understand. Now, the document the Chadian government has sent out is so specific, and we have missed a lot of it. It is canceling the military agreement of September 5, 2019. It is written there in paragraph 1. The military agreement between France on 5th of September 2019. That was when the father of Idris Deby, Ahmad, when Idris Deby was in power. What was that agreement about? That agreement had to do a lot with Boko Haram. In terms of Chad, the belief that Boko Haram is a foreign force coming from Nigeria or somewhere else. It's not a Nigerian, it's not a Chadian based operation. It's a foreign force invading Chad. And so they enter into that specific agreement. Why did they need to enter into an agreement with France in 2019 other than the agreement they entered in 1959? We have to understand that first. The 1959 agreements that France entered with its colonies that were about to have independence had two phases. One, the economics. They have to exploit all the minerals. They have the right to do to the first offer and so on and so forth. That's economics. Then the second one aspect of it was a defense agreement. It was not a defense agreement to defend the colonies from invasion. No, it was a defense agreement. It is still a defense agreement today, which makes France, gives France the right to, it was a government to government agreement. That's why France has used it all along, even in Chad, since 1962. All the leaders in Chad, all the coup d'etats have been manufactured in France. Once the government is not longer palatable, acceptable to France, they will change you. That's something he did to Gabon many years ago, even under Abel Bongo. They overthrew him. The French came and drove away the rebels and reinstalled him there. It was a government to government agreement. So that once there's a government that is not coming to be palatable to France, they will come and drive you away. The young man there today in Chad came to power in 2021, succeeding his father under the orchestration of France. Is their candidate. Is their candidate. I don't need to go far again to see well, I say we are not just understanding them. If you permit me, the second to last paragraph of that statement says, the government wishes to emphasize that this decision, that is the decision to cancel this decision, does not in any way call into or question the historical relations and friendship between the two nations. Chad remains committed to maintaining constructive relationship with France in other areas of common interest for the benefit of the two parties. And so, again, to explain that the agreement that entered in 1959 was a government-to-government agreement, is still the same. Came in the 1970s to the 80s when Cameroon was purportedly fighting a war against Nigeria in Bakassi. You did not see a Frenchman there to support Yaoundé. That was a foreign war. They didn't go there. As long as the government in Yaoundé was not destabilized, they had nothing to do with your war with Bakassi. Morocco, Mauritania, and Chad fought domestic wars. France did not go there. And above all, to illustrate this point, that it is a government-to-government agreement. We're all familiar with the Cote d'Ivoire. When Cote d'Ivoire was in trouble, when Gbagbo was in trouble, he invited the French under the French agreement of 1959. Come to my aid. They came there. They are the ones who pushed the rebel forces from Jamina to Yamoussoukro. The French did that. And to ensure that Gbagbo remained in power, they set out a buffer zone, policed by the French, to maintain Gbagbo in power. That's his government. But came 2010, 2011, when they certified and agreed that Gbagbo had lost power. He had not won the elections. Right or wrong, they shifted the alliance to Ouattara. And they're the one who now and opened the gates for Gbagbo to be arrested. That ceased to recognize him as a legitimate government in the Cote d'Ivoire. They had to bring their own candidate that they supported in the name of Ouattara, helped them to arrest Gbagbo and take him away. And so it's a government to government arrangement. It's not coming in, for example, if Cameroon were involved with the war in Chad or was fighting with
Yeah.
Central African Republic, the French will not get there.
Thank you. One
They
more thing.
protect the government in place. And the reason was simple,
We
because
are
that was to
taking.
back the economic agreement they entered into. As long as there's a government in place that favors them, they will not breach the economy. Their interest is economics. And compared to what has happened in Niger, when the Nigerians came in and said, look, we no longer want to, the ambassador should go away. We're canceling the mineral research thing, which is not economics, which is what they are referring to in that document Barasanso is reading from the French embassy. The Russians are disturbing their economic interests. And so again, this agreement was essentially based on Boko Haram. The equipment they shipped from Niger down to Niger to Chad, when they lost, it's going to remain there under their French government to government defense agreement. And so if you come to overthrow Muhammad, who is there now, whom they put there, they don't want to put him there. If you try to
Yeah.
overthrow him, they use every agreement to drive you away. Because as it says in their own statement here, they are not putting into
Yeah.
issue their colonial agreements that have maintained for decades and decades. It's written in that agreement, in that cancellation. Most importantly, again, look at the date. They are only canceling the agreement of 5th September 2019.
Mhm.
In all, the
Okay.
agreement remains
I'm happy.
intact.
Uh,
And
I
so,
think this
uh,
is one of.
and so
Let me
let me
finish,
just
but let me continue the show, please.
let me just
I
now
think
say, say back to what happened in 1959, 1960, when they were colonizing Africa and other places. They didn't say the French or the colonists should abandon their economic interests. The economic interest was maintained. Their political interest was maintained. Where it is Britain, France, or anyone, they maintain their economic interest. But let these people have their independence, and then you can influence them economically as France has been doing, or control
yeah.
them economically as they've been doing. They didn't go into that. After when they created the UN in 1945, the powers they were decolonizing the world according to the 1945 agreement of the United Nations. The people who left that agreement, who left that United Nations, without taking any interest back, were the Russians. You don't see any Russian interest. They had no colonies.
Yeah.
You don't find any Chinese interest. These are the the veto members of the United Nations. They don't have any Chinese
Yeah.
interest or Russian interest. The Russians have enough
Yeah.
minerals. They didn't have any colonies. The people who were the great colonizers were the British,
Yeah.
the French,
Yeah.
and the Americans with their superpower structure. These are three that had an interest. We share where we
Those are
have
the three
NATO forces
colonizers.
placed left and right. And so that is what it is. Again, looking at just that agreement, that circular from the Chadian foreign presidency, it's so clear. They are not canceling all the agreement. The agreement of 5th September 2019. And they say they were not putting into
Yeah.
issue
Yeah.
our colonial.
But Zambisia,
Okay,
I'm sorry if I'm cutting you short. We need to make progress so that we can handle this. And no barrister
No,
okay,
Fuller.
no,
I'm
no,
done.
no.
I'm done.
But can I
No,
can
you
I
must.
can I say something
Yes, I
very
will give
short?
you the time to do that. Just permit me to make a comment. I'll give you the time to do that. So I like this panel because you have brought in a balance in this conversation and you're getting into the details. So that you realize that the media, I don't know if they are doing that knowingly, mainstream is tactically misinforming the public because on the very first shot, when anybody sees the caption, you see from all the different media houses, Voice of America, AP, the caption is Chad ends military cooperation with. It would have been easier for them if they are not trying to mislead, if there's no strategic intention to mislead, to say Chad ends the 2019 military cooperation with France. So
Yes,
you now cannot blame those who are analyzing it differently.